She watches your stories like she never left. Midnight views, random reactions, quiet monitoring, and you're torn between missing her and being angry she won't say a single word. It's the emotional limbo no man wants to admit he's in, caught between her attention and her absence. But here's what most men don't see. Her watching you has nothing to do with wanting you back, and everything to do with how she manages her ego, her fear, and her need for control. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 truths behind her silence. Truths that will finally help you stop guessing, stop hoping, and start understanding what's really going on. What most men don't realize is that her silence isn't random at all. There's a hidden mechanism behind it, something subtle, psychological, and rarely talked about openly. It's the reason she watches without reaching out, and the reason so many men fall into the same emotional trap without understanding what they're really dealing with. If you've ever sensed there was more beneath the surface, you're right. Before we uncover what's been overlooked, hit like and subscribe. Now, let's dive into the first truth she'll never admit out loud. Number 1, she's watching to feed her ego, not to rebuild anything. She sees every story you post. She might even tap a quick reaction, just enough to show she's still hovering, but never enough to open an actual conversation. A week can pass without a single word from her. Yet she keeps popping up in your viewers list like clockwork, and that tiny hit of attention makes you wonder whether there's still something real between you. It pulls you back into that old familiar loop of hope, confusion, and maybe she still cares. But here's the truth. Most men refuse to swallow. Her behavior isn't a sign of emotional investment. It's a sign of emotional convenience. What she's giving you is what psychologists call passive interest. Passive interest is low effort, low risk, and high in psychological payoff. It looks like watching your stories, liking a post here and there, and quietly keeping tabs on you. It is not the same as active interest, which requires vulnerability, initiating conversations, asking to see you, taking emotional risks, and showing genuine effort. She chooses passive interest because watching you gives her 3 things instantly. First, validation. You still exist somewhere in her universe, and that alone makes her feel safe. Second, curiosity. She wants to see whether you look heartbroken or whether you've moved on without her. Third, comfort. She still feels connected to you just enough to reassure herself she didn't lose you completely. And all of this comes with absolutely 0 risk on her part. That's why watching feels safe. Reaching out doesn't. Reaching out means she could be ignored. Reaching out means she might discover you're not waiting anymore. Reaching out means her pride has to take a hit. Passive interest protects her ego from the possibility of rejection. Active interest exposes her. That's why she won't do it. Not unless she has something real to lose. But your mind doesn't operate like hers. A simple view feels meaningful. It feels intentional. It feels like a message. And that's exactly how you get emotionally hooked again. Every time you see her name pop up, a small part of you thinks, if she didn't care at all, she wouldn't be looking. That tiny flicker of hope is enough to keep you from moving on. Men fall into this trap all the time. You start crafting stories designed to get her attention. You post things you hope she'll see. You check whether she watched your story more than once. You mistake digital crumbs for real connection. But a view is not an invitation, a reaction is not effort, and monitoring your life from the sidelines is not the same as wanting to stand next to you again. A woman who genuinely wants another shot doesn't hide behind silent interactions. She shows up with clarity. She reaches out. She tries. She initiates. She makes her intentions known because she doesn't want to risk losing you for real. So remember this the next time you see her name at the top of your viewers list. She's not watching to rebuild anything with you. She's watching because it makes her feel good. She's watching to feed her ego, not to feed the connection. Number 2, she fears losing control more than losing you. When she watches your stories, she's not just watching you. She's watching your reaction to her silence. She's checking whether you're still emotionally predictable, still available, still quietly orbiting her. Her goal isn't reconnection. It's reassurance that you haven't slipped out of her influence. A lot of men misunderstand this part. You think she's afraid of losing you entirely, but if that were true, she would have reached out already. What she actually fears is losing the version of you who once prioritized her, chased her, apologized first, and made her the emotional center of everything. That version of you gave her a sense of control. And control is one of the most intoxicating forms of security a person can have in a relationship. Breakups don't happen in one clean break. They happen in emotional stages long before you even realize she's drifting. She starts by testing you, pulling away a little, going silent for a day or two, getting moody without explanation. She wants to see whether you panic, overgive, or compensate for the distance. When you respond with fear or neediness, she feels justified in detaching even more. Your reactions silently tell her she still holds the power. Then she takes another step back. Maybe she becomes harder to reach. Maybe she stops initiating anything. Maybe she seems bored, distracted, or checked out. And if you start collapsing emotionally in response, texting more, chasing harder, asking what's wrong, she collects all of that as proof that she can walk away without truly losing you. That's why she ultimately leaves without second-guessing herself. She believes she already knows how you respond to the fear of losing her. So why won't she reach out after leaving? Because reaching out forces her to confront something she's been avoiding, the possibility that she misjudged you. Reaching out means admitting she no longer has the upper hand. It means exposing herself to rejection. It means risking that the version of you she once controlled is no longer there. That's a terrifying reality for someone who built her choice to walk away on the assumption that you would stay emotionally stuck. That's why she prefers the middle ground. She keeps you in a state of uncertainty, just close enough to monitor, but never close enough to rebuild anything real. She watches your story right after you post. She likes something at random. She throws a subtle post into the world just to see if you'll respond. And if you do respond, even silently, she gets the reassurance she wanted. You're still emotionally within reach. But the moment you stop responding to her breadcrumbs, everything shifts. When you stop chasing, she loses the data she's been relying on. When you don't react to her vague posts, she doesn't know where she stands anymore. When you focus on your life instead of decoding her behavior, she can no longer predict you. That's the moment she feels the loss. Not of you as a person, but of the control she once had over your emotions. Her silence has never been about losing you. It has always been about not wanting to lose control. Number 3. She's attracted to uncertainty, but you should be anchored. There's a reason she pulls back when you're clear, consistent, and devoted, and suddenly reappears the moment you go quiet. It's not because she wants chaos, it's because uncertainty activates a part of the human mind that predictability never will. When everything about you is transparent, your intentions, your availability, your emotions, she doesn't have to work for anything. She doesn't have to wonder where she stands. She doesn't have to invest. She doesn't have to risk. And without risk, there is no emotional tension. Without tension, there is no pull. What she gets from you is comfort. But comfort without challenge turns into boredom fast. Humans don't get addicted to consistency. They get addicted to inconsistency. That's how dopamine works. When rewards are unpredictable, when attention comes one day and silence the next, the brain fires harder. It's the emotional equivalent of a slot machine. You keep checking, hoping the next poll gives you something. That's why she checks your profile more when you stop posting. That's why she watches your stories more intently when you stop reacting to hers. That's why she checks in only when you're distant. It's the uncertainty that hooks her, not the clarity. But here's the part most men miss. Uncertainty can be healthy or toxic, depending on where it comes from. Toxic uncertainty is when a man plays games, ignoring her on purpose, lying, manipulating, breadcrumbing, or pulling away just to pull her back in. That's emotional immaturity disguised as strategy. It's not attractive, it's chaotic, and it always backfires because sooner or later she realizes she's being toyed with. Healthy uncertainty, on the other hand, comes from something entirely different. A man who is grounded in his life, not in her reactions. He's not ignoring her. He's simply not available 24/7. He's not pulling away to punish her. He's focused on his work, his purpose, his health, his mission. He's not unpredictable because he's unstable. He's unpredictable because he has a life larger than one woman's attention. That kind of uncertainty doesn't create chaos. It creates respect. But most men sabotage themselves before they ever get there. The moment they feel her slipping, they panic. They double text. They explain themselves too much. They pour out paragraphs of emotion hoping to fix the misunderstanding. They chase the approval they fear losing. And without realizing it, they hand her every ounce of power she thought she lost. The irony is brutal. The more you cling to her, the more she clings to the feeling of having options. The more you cling to your life, your purpose, your direction, the more she clings to the feeling of potentially losing you. A woman doesn't fall for the man who tries to control her feelings. She falls for the man who controls his own. She's drawn to the uncertainty that naturally surrounds a man who is deeply anchored in who he is, what he wants, and where he's going. You're real. Power has nothing to do with making her wonder what you're doing. It comes from living a life where she's not the center of your universe. Number 4. Your absence triggers reflection her ego would never allow. Here's the paradox that every man eventually learns the hard way. You can pour your heart out in 1,000 words and nothing changes, but disappear for 10 days and suddenly she feels everything she's been avoiding. Not because she's secretly in love, but because absence forces a kind of emotional clarity that comfort never will. When you're still present, still reaching out, still available, still lingering in her orbit, she doesn't have to confront anything. She doesn't have to question her choices. She doesn't have to wonder if she misjudged you. Your presence makes it too easy for her ego to stay intact. She can walk away while still knowing you're there if she ever needs the reassurance. That's why your words fail, not because they aren't sincere, but because they don't disrupt her reality. They don't create contrast. They don't introduce loss. They simply confirm what she already believes. You're safe, predictable, and emotionally open, no matter how she behaves. But the moment you remove yourself, everything shifts. Absence breaks the illusion she built to justify moving on. Suddenly, her choices aren't protected by the safety net of your availability. Suddenly, she doesn't know what you're thinking, who you're seeing, or whether you're even still affected by her. That uncertainty, real grounded uncertainty, is what triggers reflection. There's psychological science behind it. Humans value what they can't easily access. We replay memories when they're no longer within reach. We idealize things we believe we've lost. And the brain fills silence with questions it never asked when reassurance was easy to find. That's why disappearing hits differently. It forces her to revisit the breakup without the armor of knowing you're emotionally stuck. It makes her wonder whether she misread your strength, whether you were more valuable than she realized, whether she should have appreciated you more. Of course, not all silence is the same. Some men use absence as a weapon, ignoring her to punish her or to play mind games. That's childish, reactive, and rooted in insecurity. That kind of silence doesn't build attraction. It exposes a lack of emotional maturity. But mature absence comes from a different place. It's the decision to step back because the situation no longer aligns with your self-respect. It's the recognition that talking won't change anything. It's choosing peace over chaos. And that kind of absence doesn't manipulate, it liberates. When you pull back for the right reasons, her behavior almost always shifts. She starts watching your stories more consistently. She pays closer attention to what you post. She revisits old memories in private. She compares you to the men she's meeting now and realizes the difference. She looks for clues in your silence, trying to understand how you detached so calmly. You didn't convince her. You didn't chase her. You didn't perform for her validation. You simply removed the version of yourself who was too available, and that's when she begins to feel what your words never could. Number 5. If she really wanted you, you wouldn't be confused. There's a simple truth that every man eventually has to face. When a woman genuinely wants you in her life, there is no mystery. There are no mixed signals. There is no decoding. There is no guessing. Her actions make themselves known without you having to analyze every like, every view, every tiny breadcrumb she drops. The confusion you're feeling right now isn't a sign of love. It's a sign of lack of effort. If she truly wanted you, she would not rely on silent viewing as her communication. She wouldn't sit in the shadows hoping you notice her presence. She wouldn't let pride or fear stop her from reaching out. Attraction makes people brave, not passive. And a woman who wants you will always choose clarity over distance. Watching isn't effort. Liking isn't commitment. Posting isn't reaching out. These are signals without substance. Empty gestures meant to keep you emotionally nearby without requiring her to invest anything real. They allow her to maintain a connection without the vulnerability of showing genuine interest. They give her the illusion of closeness while keeping all the responsibility on your shoulders. But a woman who truly desires you, she behaves differently. She checks on you not out of curiosity but out of care. She initiates conversations. She asks how you've been because she actually wants to know. She tries to see you. She shows remorse if she hurt you. She doesn't hide behind silence and hope. You do the heavy lifting. She steps forward because losing you feels like a real risk. Silence is not a puzzle. Silence is a decision. Every day she chooses not to reach out is a day she chooses not to prioritize you. It doesn't matter if she thinks about you. People think about old memories all the time. It doesn't matter if she misses certain moments. Nostalgia is not enough to rebuild anything. What matters is action, and she isn't taking any. That's why a high-value man treats silence as clarity. He doesn't chase someone who isn't choosing him. He doesn't inflate the meaning of digital breadcrumbs. He doesn't rewrite her behavior to fit the story he wishes were true. He doesn't let social media activity shape his self-worth. He respects himself enough to require more than passive interest. And here's the shift that changes everything. Her silence doesn't diminish you. It reveals her. It reveals her level of emotional maturity. It reveals her willingness to invest. It reveals her ability to communicate. It reveals whether she sees your worth or whether she's keeping you as a backup option. You don't need a woman who watches you from a distance. You need one who steps toward you with intention. You need someone who shows her interest, not someone who hides it. And if she isn't doing that, then her silence is giving you the only answer you need. If she truly wanted you, you wouldn't be stuck decoding her behavior. You would already know exactly where you stand. You've just walked through the 5 truths most men never hear. Truths that explain why a woman can watch you endlessly, yet stay completely silent. And when you put them together, the picture becomes painfully clear. She's not watching because she's planning a comeback. She's watching because it's easy. Because it feeds her ego without requiring her to show effort. Because silence keeps her in control while you sit in confusion. Because uncertainty pulls her in ways predictability never will. Because your absence exposes the truth her pride tries to hide. And most of all, because if she truly wanted you, she wouldn't be hiding behind a screen. You're not chained to the woman who only observes you from the distance. You're not obligated to wait for a signal that never comes. You don't need to earn the attention of someone who won't even send a message. Her silence does not define your worth, and her views do not validate your value. Let her watch, let her scroll, let her wonder. Those are her choices, not your responsibilities. Your responsibility is to yourself, to your purpose, to your growth, to becoming the man whose life is too full, too disciplined, too meaningful to be halted by someone who only shows up in notifications. The moment you turn your focus inward, the moment you stop chasing ghosts and start building something real, every silent spectator from your past becomes irrelevant. And if you felt this deeply, if something finally clicked, don't just disappear without taking action. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and share this with the man who keeps losing himself over someone who only exists in his viewer list. And in the comments, write this down and own it. I control my emotions. Her silence does not control my life. You are the prize. Start living like it.